And please stand and join us with a moment of silence followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Hello everyone, my name is Amy and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety birthday is May 29th, 2010. Welcome to the 7 p.m. Thursday night meeting, the Treasure Map Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a closed meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, but spouses are welcome to attend this meeting with the alcoholic. We send a special welcome to any visitors from out of town. Please stand and introduce yourself. Also, anyone who may be visiting the Treasure Map meeting for the first time, please stand and be recognized. Finally, is there anyone here who this is their first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous? Please stand and be recognized. We are very happy that you came tonight. You are welcome here. If you would like, please come to the welcome table. We have free gift for you. Once again, thank you for being here with us tonight. The Treasure Map Group of Alcoholics Anonymous believes in working the 12 steps as outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous with the sponsor. There are many home group members here tonight that are willing to be sponsors. If you are new or if you don't have a sponsor, you can stop at the back table during the break and see Randy for names and numbers of home group members willing to sponsor others. The Treasure Map Group of Alcoholics Anonymous is committed to bringing a message of hope to those who suffer from alcoholism. We believe this message is contained within the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and our personal experiences. The AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Our meeting tonight will focus on step 10. Our Big Book study will begin shortly. If you need a Big Book, please raise your hand and we will bring one to you. We have some announcements tonight too. I don't know who's doing the announcements. Is it? Yep.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael. I'm an alcoholic. And welcome, everyone. A couple of announcements tonight. We mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. We do have cards that can be passed around. You can pick them up. They're free. Place for you to write your name and your phone number to newcomers. And it allows them to hear about the meeting, but also allows you an opportunity to give them your name and number in case they need some help with anything. We started a couple of weeks ago for people who want to contribute to the meeting, a PayPal account. That's been rather successful. We've seen that kind of picking up, so please check that out. Should be linked to your email, also on our website as well, so feel free, right? I struggle carrying cash, but this way I can keep the meeting going. On Thursday, June 7th, we're going to have our second group conscience meeting. So we invite all home group members to attend there. We do have a number of things to cover. It shouldn't take very long, even though there's a lot of topics. We try to be very succinct on that. One is officers. We have a couple of positions we'd like to fill. The second thing is we're going to have our first financial report, see how the group is doing, see how we're doing financially. We also have some committee updates, specifically our 12-step committee update. We're excited about hearing about that. And then future format. As you guys know, we started this with a format of a step study, right? And every other week, we're doing a step study out of the Big Book, and then the week after, someone follows up with their personal experience with that. as we move forward, we have a lot of discussion just amongst ourselves about what the next phase of that might look like. And we'd like to share that with our home group members and kind of get some feedback and even perhaps other ideas before we reach the end, so that we're prepared so that we can move forward correctly. There has been talk of things like a newcomers night. Maybe it's the second Thursday of the month where we focus specifically on newcomers, and we pick different topics perhaps to talk about. Maybe we have two speakers. One talks about sponsorship, for instance. The other talks about how to avoid the first drink when your head is yelling at you. Or, how do I get involved in these steps? Or, why do I need to be at meetings? Or how does the fellowship help me? So there's a various topics that could be focused toward the newcomer, but could also be advantageous and edifying for the rest of us, right? So we'd certainly like feedback on that. The other thing that we're going to discuss are fellowship options. We're coming into the summer, and so we're thinking about maybe a picnic. We're thinking about some quarterly events. We'd certainly like some feedback on that, right? Birthday night is next week, so if you're a home group member and you'd like to celebrate your birthday with us, please make sure you see Randy at the table and put your 2 weeks. Sorry, 2 weeks, the 31st. Down. Make sure Randy gets your name down.
3 weeks.
May 31st is the birthday night. Regardless of how many weeks away it is, we know for a fact it's May 31st. And we also have an announcement back there for Bad Axe, which is a men's retreat. It's August 3rd through the 5th. And if you haven't been to Bad Axe, anybody here been to Bad Axe? Maybe raise your hand. Probably 5, 6 of us, 7 of us. I got to tell you, it's a tremendous weekend. We have a gentleman named Ralph W. from Los Angeles coming in. Also, Josh S. from Lawndale, California is flying in. And it's a tremendous weekend. So please look up, talk to Randy again on the flyers over there. A couple of things on our website. Some folks were asking about it. And just want to let everybody know that for conventions and conferences, you can go to our website. We have lists there from Box 459, which is an Alcoholics Anonymous staple. They send out long lists of where these things are, literally all over the world, but they do cover the Sioux Empire as well. So a big long list on there for those looking around for conferences or workshops and what have you. So that's all I had tonight. Thanks. Thank you, Ed.
All right, and now please welcome Marcia to read How It Works from our textbook, Alcoholics Anonymous.
I'm Marcia. I'm an alcoholic. How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, and many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided that you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil, until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol cunning, baffling, and powerful. Without help, it is too much for us, but there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. We admitted, number one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, we humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order, I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if He were sought.
Thanks, Marcia. Now, please welcome David to read our 12 traditions as we pass the baskets. Thank you in advance for your generous support. Tradition 7 states every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions.
Okay. I'm David. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, David.
1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted as servants. They do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, or prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relation policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and film. 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thanks, David. We talk a lot about home group membership at the Treasure Map Group because we believe it is vital to our recovery. What does it mean to be a home group member? Here is a brief excerpt from the AA Group Service Conference Approved pamphlet on the AA Group. The AA Home Group. Traditionally, most AA members through the years have found it important to belong to one group that they call their home group. This is the group where they accept service responsibilities and try to sustain friendships. And although all AA members are usually welcome at all groups and feel at home at any of these meetings, the concept of the home group has still remained the strongest bond between the AA member and the fellowship. With membership comes the right to vote on issues that might affect the group and might also affect AA as a whole, a process that forms the very cornerstone of AA service structures. As with all group conscious matters, each AA member has one vote, and this ideally is voiced through the home group. Over the years, the very essence of AA strength has remained with our home group, which for many members becomes our extended family. Once isolated by our drinking, we find in the home group a solid continuing support system, friends, and very often a sponsor. We also learn firsthand through the group's workings how to place principles before personalities in the interest of carrying the AA message. Talking about her own home group, a member says, "Part of my commitment is to show up at my home group meeting, greet newcomers at the door, and be available to them, not only for them, but for me. My fellow group members are the people who know me, listen to me, and steer me straight when I am off in left field. They give me their experience, strength, and AA love, enabling me to pass it on to the alcoholic who still suffers." If you are interested in making the treasure map meeting your home group, please see Randy at the back table, at the break, or after the meeting. Now, before we start with our speakers for the evening, please remember to shut off or silence your cell phones at this time. Thank you. I skipped a part. So the Treasure Map group of Alcoholics Anonymous celebrates our sobriety birthdays on the last Thursday of each month. Treasure Map home group members celebrate each month of sobriety for the first 12 months and then each consecutive year thereafter. If you would like to make the Treasure Map group your home group, please see Randy at the back table. The current list of birthdays we'll be celebrating this month, we have a couple, and if you plan to celebrate your sobriety birthday with us and are not yet on the list, please see me at the break or after the meeting so we can get you added to the list. But we do have a 30-day chip to give, and that is for David.
My name's David. I'm an alcoholic. About a month ago, I checked myself into Tallgrass because I had some health issues and I knew I needed to quit drinking. And this morning's my first day out, and this group was recommended to me to come for my home group, so I figured I'd come and check it out. And so far, so good. Thanks, guys.
Now back to our regular scheduled program, since I will get this right, I promise. For our short speaker tonight, we have Scott coming to share about the 10th step.
Hi, everybody. My name's Scott, and I'm an alcoholic. It's by the grace of God, sponsorship, and the program outlined in the Big Book that I've been sober since July 19th of 2006, and I'm grateful for that. You know, the 10th step is a great step. It's one of those that when you first read it, when I first sobered up and I read, not only was I not going to do a personal inventory in 4, I certainly wasn't going to do it daily. There was just not a chance, because what I did was I drank to avoid having to do any sort of daily inventory, so that if I harmed you, I didn't have to worry about what was going to happen to me or if I had to make it right with you. So it's an interesting topic for me to talk about. And when I growing up, I did not know what Alcoholics Anonymous was. I wasn't raised in an alcoholic household. Kind of everybody around me was watching what I was doing, and they were just like, stop doing that. Don't do that anymore, you know? And I used to say that I was an alcoholic because I used to like to drink a lot. I drank till I blacked out. I drank till I passed out. And I'd say, haha, it's funny, I'm an alcoholic, you know? And I get assigned the opportunity to go get an evaluation done when I got arrested, and I lied on it, because I don't know if you've ever taken one of those when you are 19 years old and you don't want to stop drinking or doing other things. You just lie on it. And so I'm like, all right, what do I think that they want my answers to be so I can just get out of here quickly? Turns out they thought I was an alcoholic even on my lies. So I'm like, oh, this is a problem. And I remember having a conversation with my dad, because it's one of those where it's like I was still half in the real world, like I was still lying enough to make it look like I was like operating in the normal world. I'm like, these people say I'm an alcoholic, and if I am, like everybody I hang out with is an alcoholic, which by the way has turned out to be fairly true. 15 years later, a couple of them are in the program and sober members today. But so I came to a treatment center through that. It was an outpatient treatment center, and they gave me this book. I didn't pay attention to it. They said you have to go to 3 AA meetings a week for this outpatient program. And I Googled what AA was. And again, I'd never been there, never seen this book, never heard about it. And I'm like, it's anonymous. These people are fools. All I'm going to do is write Joe S. on the sheet, right? So I looked up, I found out there was a South Side and a West Side in this town. I didn't grow up here, so I found out those were the 2 clubhouses. I wrote down South Side for one, West Side for the other. I signed 2 fake names, and they never checked on it, right? So I get through just kind of how I got through school, kind of how I got through life, right? Just looking up. I worked a lot harder to figure out how to get around the way to do the real work. And so at that point, I went back out for a couple years, and I tried a couple different methods to stay sober because my life was getting worse, right? So like I was making these decisions that were completely based on self, and this is hindsight talking. I was making decisions at the moment of what I thought was the right, like what I felt like I wanted to do. So I'd make these decisions, and then my life wouldn't go well, and I didn't want to feel that way anymore. And I got to a point where a couple years later, I just couldn't. I couldn't go on drinking, but I did not know how to quit. So I went to some loved ones and I said, I can't do it anymore. I just can't do it. And I don't know. And they had no idea. I mean, they had no idea. They knew a guy that was a friend of theirs that went to this cafe in Watertown once a week with a bunch of drunk guys. Like that's what they knew of AA, right? It was an AA meeting. But they called him and they said, well, you should look into a treatment center, and then you should pray, because that's kind of how it's going to work, So I went to treatment, and they gave me this book, and I wanted to be sober, and they gave me this book, and they told me what to do. They said, get out, get a sponsor, go to meetings, work the steps. And I got out, and I went to a lot of meetings, guys, a lot of meetings. I did not get a sponsor, and I did not work the steps. So when I say at the beginning, I'm sober today because of sponsorship and because of God and because of these steps. It's those things that got me to be able to even talk about the 10th step, because I couldn't get past the 3rd step when I was doing this by myself. I couldn't interpret anything beyond just reading them, So I got out, didn't get a sponsor, didn't work the steps. And actually Tim, who spoke here not that long ago, I asked him to be my sponsor out of treatment. And he said, let's get on our knees and say the 3rd step prayer. We did that in room 6 and 7 at Southside. And we said the 3rd step prayer, and I stopped showing up to meetings. I didn't get it, right? Like I didn't get the God thing. I didn't get the AA thing. So I just stopped going to meetings, and I got more and more miserable. And it was kind of the darkest period of my life. I mean, it was 5 months, and now it seems like it was not very long, right? But at the time it was a long 5 months, and it was dark. And it was, again, I was in this spot where with alcohol, my life was horrible. Without it, it was much worse. So I needed to figure out what to do. And that's what I came back in, and I went back out, and my family said, you said when you went back out, you needed to go to treatment. And I said, guys, treatment isn't the answer. Like I've seen it in AA. It's in AA. That's the answer. And they said, okay, well then what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to get a sponsor, and I'm going to go to a meeting. And that night I went to a meeting, and I got a sponsor, and I started to work the steps in the big book. And the beauty of that is that we're here, 11 plus years later, and just remarkable things have happened in my life, right? So there are, I am sponsored by a guy who has a sponsor. So I'm getting advice from somebody who's working the steps, right? I'm sponsoring other men. I've got a wife and 4 children today. Like that is so far-fetched for a guy like me. I can't even tell you. My sponsor told me you can't date for the first year. Okay, that's fine. July 19th, 2007, I said, I'm ready. And he said, no, you're not. You need 1 more year. And I was like, what are you talking about? This guy's crazy. July 22nd, the next year, I connected with my wife, right? I mean, I just don't know what the circumstances would have been had it not been that way. But it was just the advice, just seeking the advice of somebody else. And that kind of leads me into the 10th step, where the 10th step says that we take a daily inventory, right? So what I have found, and I'm not, early on, I might have done more of the daily inventories, right? But I'm a spot check guy, right? So throughout the day, and the 12 and 12 talks about that, where we do a spot check, and the number one thing that I need to learn is self-restraint. And it talks about that in the 12 and 12, where it's like, I just have to hold my tongue. I have to bite my tongue, because what I want to do is just make a comment right now, and it's the filter that AA has given me that's helped me stay out of a lot of situations that used to get me into trouble, where I'd immediately have to say sorry for something that I didn't even mean. It was just a spur of the moment thing. So that's, one of the things, and what's helped me with that is I have a sponsor. Again, I meet with my sponsor and regularly talk to them about things. I have other men in Alcoholics Anonymous who are not my sponsors, but who will return text messages or phone calls, or will hang out, and we get to bounce stuff off of each other and say, hey, I did this. What do you think? Because another thing that it talks about in the 12 and 12 and in the big book about the 10th step is that justification is kind of a big enemy, because what I'll do is I will say, well, that's just a little constructive criticism, or that's just me, they need to hear the truth. Well, those are ways for me to mask my bad behavior, right? So and that's true. It happens in our life, like professionally, with coworkers, with employees, employers, whoever it might be. I can sit there and I can justify my bad behavior, and the big book talks about that. Like, I have to dig deeper. This is a self-appraisal. Like, I have to dig deeper. If I'm not seeking and searching for something better than today, then I'm resting on my laurels, right? And I'm not growing, and I'm not getting the results that I know are here. And the reason I know it is because I'm around people, again, who are doing this deal, and I'm seeing growth in them, and I want that, right? I don't want to be the same next year that I am today. I want to be better. I want to grow. I want to learn. And obviously I make mistakes, right? And I could stand up here and list a bunch of 10th steps that I've had to make. And I meet with a spiritual advisor, but my religion allows me to do confession, right? So I do confessions on a fairly regular basis. So I'm able to do a house cleaning through that, right? I do these spot check inventories, and I do occasionally, when I go through the steps with someone I'm working with as a sponsee, I'll do a fourth and a fifth with them. So I'll do that. But really 10, 11, and 12 is where this maintenance of the program happens, right? And so for me, if I'm living in 10 every day, I've got a shot. And it talks about these promises. I don't know how long. Okay. So, everybody knows the 9 step promises, right? And it's, let me see here, 84. What's cool about these, as I read through them, so it brings us to step 10, right? So we've got these 9 step promises just before, where it's like, you'll know serenity, you'll know peace, all of the promises that we always talk about. Then it goes on to the 10th step, and it says, we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone else. Okay, love and tolerance of others is our code. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol, right? Like, that happened to me. So you read that in the book the first time through, and you're like, whatever, right? Doesn't mean anything, but like, it happened to me. Like, I no longer have to fight you. I no longer have to win. I no longer have to be better than or more than. Like, I can coexist with you and know that you are like God's child, just like I am. And it talks about that too in the 12 and 12, where, we have some perspective, because that other person, like, I always play a part, but that other person is also ill, right? Whether they're alcoholic or not. Like, we all have issues, and I can give a little bit of grace there. But then by this time, sanity will have returned is the next sentence. Holy buckets, we will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We'll see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That's the miracle of it. We're not fighting it. Neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we had been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. It doesn't exist for us. Like, that's something that happened to me. I don't know when or how, but somewhere along the line, working these steps, that obsession was removed. I no longer was afraid of drinking. And it was pretty early on for me that now I can go anywhere freely, and I don't have to worry about any of that. I'm not worried about drinking. I'm not worried. I mean, we have this daily reprieve based on our spiritual condition, right? So these 10, 11, and 12 help me stay in that, but I no longer worry about any of these things. I think that's all I've got. So I appreciate your guys' time, and with that, I'll pass.
Hello, everyone. Let's go ahead and head back to our seats. Thank you. And it is now my pleasure to introduce our facilitator this evening, Mike D. There you are, I was looking for you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael D. And I hate that. Anyways, Mike D. and Michael D. And I'm an alcoholic. It's great to see everyone tonight. I got to tell you, for me, the best part of this meeting is the break. And what do I mean by that? I mean, it's such a great thing to see alcoholics just standing around talking to each other. The camaraderie, the community, you know, that's what we want here, right? We want everyone to know they're welcome. We want everyone to engage other people and find a confidant, find friends. This life is sometimes can be very, very difficult. I know that from personal experience. And to be able to have people that I can walk next to and walk with, who can carry me, believe it or not, when I need that, and people that I can help carry, you know. I find value in both sides of that, and I think it's great that we have a place that we can come and have some camaraderie as well as step recovery and actions that we can be sharing and walking when we're not here and when we're not together. And I think that's a nice place to start as far as the 10-step is concerned. You know, Scotty read a little bit about the promises, and I thought he did a great job. I'll give him one more round of applause. That was great. I got to tell you, I think the folks that have spoken here, present company exception, but I mean, the people that have spoken really have done a great job. Matt last week, you know, Christy before that, and Judith, and you know, I think just tremendous, the information that we're getting from people's personal experiences. And when I think of the 10th step, Scotty talked about the maintenance, and he's right? We're to maintain our growth, right? It's not maintenance in terms of stagnation, staying at the same level. It's maintenance in terms of continuing the growth process that we began, because we're simply replicating the very process we just did. I mean, step 10, technically, and parts of step 11, which we'll talk about in a couple of weeks, is really just a reiteration of what we've done in 4 through 9, right? And if we remember how we're talking about that, 4 through 9 is how we do what? It's how we fulfill the commitment we made in step 3, right? Why are we making that commitment? Well, because AA can't do anything about our bodies. We have this physical allergy to alcohol that Dr. Silkworth talks about so eloquently and so clearly. AA can't help my body. We're not counselors and therapists. AA can't really help my brain, right? But what AA helps is that third part, that broken soul part, that part inside of us that longs for something that we can just sort of feel is missing. I was talking to a guy the other day, and we talked about how it seemed like satisfaction was just past the grasp. Like it was, we almost had it that time, right? Or we felt like we grabbed it a little bit, but it kind of was like a greased pig and slid right through our fingers, you know, and how we almost made it. But, you know, when I sit down and talk to folks and we really start being candid with each other, there's been a longing in our souls long before we ever took a drink. There's been some gap, something missing, that no matter what we shoved into that broken part of us, we could not find satiation. We could not find peace. We could not find a way to live and get the same great exhale that a couple of drinks of booze gave me. You know, when I drank in that bar on Western Avenue in Chicago and many others around there too, I would get this after a couple of sips, really far from being drunk, right? But for me, alcohol is exactly what Carl Jung told Bill Wilson he thought it was for people like me. And what Carl Jung expressed to Roland Hazard, and how Roland came back and found the Oxford groups, he was looking for something different than just knowledge about God. He was looking for something deeper than that. He was looking for a relationship with and a connection to God, which is very different than knowledge of him. You know, it's interesting, and we probably did this, some of us probably had that experience as we stood here today. There might be someone that you spoke with at the break who you don't really know. Maybe you know a little bit about, maybe you know kind of where they come from, maybe you kind of know some parts of them, but you don't know them fully, right? But you got to connect with them at some level, right? And I think that Alcoholics Anonymous, the steps, the things we do when we're not at a meeting, or maybe we do in the middle of it, really bring us to a place where not only can we know more about God, but we can get to a place where we actually know God. That's a fairly bold statement, right? But honestly, I've studied this book for a long time, and I think that's the message of it. It's not drinking. It's finding a God that we can relate to so that he keeps that drink from us so that we can fellowship with him. And that he can fill that broken part of us so that we have plenty for each other. Not plenty for ourselves. Every time I've tried to hoard this thing or keep it or nuzzle it to myself or afraid I was going to lose it, I didn't put my hand out and I lost an opportunity to bring somebody a message. And I paid the price for that. But when I'm connected with him, I feel full. And then I have plenty to give everybody else. I'm not lacking anything. And so how did I find that? I think I found it in the first 9 steps. I truthfully didn't know what alcoholism was, and when Joe my old sponsor, began to explain that to me, I began to get an awareness of kind of what he was talking about. And it was some of those nights early in recovery that I blamed on my alcoholism, which is true, but really pointed out what was wrong with me. There were points of depression. There were points of loneliness. There were points of isolation. There were points of just grabbing at anything. I'm telling you, we used to go down to the Village Inn, which is Marlin's now, on Minnesota Avenue, and we would chain smoke and chug coffee like nobody's business. We were professional smokers and professional coffee chuggers. And I mean, we could eat a hot fudge sundae in about 38 seconds. I mean, we just could, right? And it was like anything with sugar, anything to just keep moving, anything to just keep my mind off what was going on. Just go, 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 go. And when I was alone and I would get by myself and I'd go back to my 1-bedroom apartment behind the post office, there's an old Ronning complex, I would feel it. I would feel that the fellowship could not satiate me either. I would feel that in spite of the great time that I had, the fun that we had, the jokes we told, the laughs we had around that round table, I'd go home and I'd be by myself and I could feel the longing for connection with something much bigger than even people. In A Vision for You, it says that Alcoholics Anonymous has a substitute for alcohol. And that's called the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. But in the first 10 chapters, it says alcohol's not my problem. Right? So even though the fellowship can be a substitute for alcohol, in the right context, I have to understand that alcohol is not my problem. And so even though I connect with all of you, and hopefully you connect with me, that's still not going to solve my problem. What's really wrong with me? This sense of isolation and this sense of separation. And I began to start feeling community with people when I looked at my life in 4, wrote down my resentments, my fears, and my sex conduct. When I shared it with someone else in 5, and frankly, when I got on my knees in 6 and 7 and asked God to take those things away from me. But it really began to connect after the steps we talked about last week that Matt did such a great job on. I began to find that this separation that I was perceiving between us, that made me act more important so you would be impressed and stay around me, this perceived illusion of separation that made me pretend to be not hurting when I was, for fear that if you saw that I was hurting, you wouldn't, I don't know what I thought you would think of me. I just couldn't be honest. I just couldn't be honest. And that began to erode and evaporate through the miracle of the 8th and 9th step. I began to see that these problems that I had imagined were so big, no matter how big they were. And as you heard my story a couple weeks ago, pretty big ones in there. Began to evaporate as I took the action. And to me, the 10th step is the means by which the program calls us toward even a deeper way of living with these principles. You know, what's interesting And Scotty talked about, a daily inventory. And when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I assumed, because I didn't read the book, that the 10th step meant getting out a notebook and looking at my life and doing an inventory of my resentments for the day and my fears for the day and my sex conduct for the day. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely 100% nothing wrong with that. My sponsor and I do an annual house cleaning with each other, right? And that's just, so we write another one. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But when I read the book, we talk about living a daily program. We talk about living in the moment. To me, doesn't mean I'm right. But as I go through this and I look at what it says, it seems to me that it's indicating the path to live in the moment with God and to expel these things that distract me from connecting with Him right now. And therefore connecting with you authentically right now. Right? So if you have a book, and that's okay if you don't, we'll read some of these things. I really think that's what it says. We have the so-called 9th step promises, which is up for debate. Is it a 10th step promise or a 9th step promise? The answer is yes, I think. And it says, are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. This is my favorite promise of all. They will always materialize if we work for them. It's my favorite promise. I was hoping that. It says this thought. What thought? That they will always materialize if we work for them. That idea of working for them brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. I was told by Joe that I could start that immediately after I was finished with my 4-step. That this idea of, okay, I wrote my 4-step down, and then the next day, I'm hit with something, I can practice the 10-step principle right then. It says we have entered the world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. Here's the action. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. 4 things. Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Those don't have to show up in my behavior. As a matter of fact, my behavior is generally a response to what I'm thinking. Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear generally start up here before they've even manifested themselves in my life. And so if I'm at work and there's a customer that I maybe should have called back last week and forgot to, Mike, so-and-so on line 2, oh yeah, I'm supposed to call the guy back, right? Fear, right? Selfishness, I should lie about that. Dishonesty, oh, hey, just got back in the office. No, I didn't, right? I mean, how am I going to handle that moment, right? How am I going to handle that moment? Well, if left up to my devices, I'm telling you, I'm going to repeat the very similar behavior that I wrote down on my 4-step. Left to my own devices, I'm going to do that. I think most of us would, because we have nothing else to fall back on except habitual practice of character defects. Right? But the 10th step goes further, and it gives me a path. It gives me something to do so that I don't repeat the behavior. Right? So I've heard people say in 6 and 7, look, this is about you changing. This is about you stopping to do, what you used to do. And I don't disagree that there's a portion of that, but I think that path is found in the 10th step. Because what did I used to do? Respond to every feeling, every emotion, every nuance of disturbance within me. I'd react to it. Have to. Scotty talked about restraint brilliantly. Right? I thought what I needed to do was to deny that was going on and then willfully act in an opposite way. The book is clear. I don't need to do that. I don't need to pretend. Right? I don't need to pretend. If I'm denying that this whirlwind of emotion is going on within me at times, that's not an honest thing. Right? So what do I do with that? Well, I think if we just follow what the book says, it's pretty simple. May not be easy, but it's pretty simple. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we do 4 things. So we look and watch for 4 things, and when we see any semblance of them, we do 4 things. First thing, it says we ask God to remove them. How about that? Just pray. So I'm afraid that that guy on the phone is going to say something. I'm afraid my wife is going to do this. I'm afraid the bills are going to be this way. I'm afraid she's going to do that. That guy looked at me funny when I came in. I wonder what he's about. Oh my gosh, did you see the way those two, when I came up, those two were talking, and then when I came up, they stopped. They must have been talking about me because clearly they don't like me, because who would? Again, individual thoughts. Not that I would ever assume any of you had anything like that at all. But this is the chronic running around of these hamsters in the habit trail of my mind. You know, that little circle that they just run like hell on? You know? That can be a constant flow of ideas and thoughts. What do you do with them? Do you just tolerate them? I'm not sure that's a solution, right? So when we see them, first thing we do is ask God to remove it. It says we discuss them with someone immediately. Make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. 4 things. Ask God to remove them, talk to someone, make amends, go serve. Repeatedly throughout this book, the answer to every single defective character we have is relationship with God as it manifests itself in prayer and service for others. It doesn't even matter what the defect is. It doesn't matter if you have different ones than me. Our solution is the same. And there's, I think, a beautiful irony in that, right? Because we all drank differently too, right? No one drank as badly as Craig, but I mean, most of us drank in different ways, right? Some of us have tons of DUIs. Some of us have multiple marriages and divorces. Some of us have multiple bankruptcies. Some of us have none of that. Some of us gallivanted all over the country in blackouts. Some of us never blacked out. But we always had one solution to every problem, and it was called booze, right? So no matter how our problems manifest themselves, how differently they might manifest themselves, we still share a common solution, as we always have. It's just a different one than we shared before. And that's God, right? Prayer, talking to someone, making amends if we've done something wrong, and then finding someone to serve, right? The solution is Him as it relates to my prayer and my service to others. It handles every defect we could possibly have. And we can think that just cannot be true. No, it is. I look at the 9th step, and we talked about some of the financial amends that I made. Matt talked about some of his. What was Matt doing when he made those financial amends? He was serving those people he stole from. They didn't want his money. They just wanted theirs back, right? Same thing with the people that I needed to pay back. Federal government didn't want my money. They wanted the money I owed them for years, right? So how does this translate? How does this work? Like in practical, regular, everyday application, like what does this look like? Well, I think that this kind of explains the way I try to practice this, right? And the way I try to encourage the guys that I work with to try to practice this. And thank you. The way I try to practice it, and the way I try to encourage others to practice it, is you go live your life. This whole thing is about freedom, not bondage. The book is clear multiple times. I can go anywhere on planet Earth. If I have a reason to be there, I can go anywhere. Includes bars, includes concerts, includes friends I used to drink with. I can go anywhere because I'm not keeping me sober. Never have been able to, and I never will be able to keep me sober. The promises that Scotty read says I've been placed, and we've been placed, if we've done 1 through 9 and we practice 10, we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. It doesn't say you're in a position of neutrality because you're protecting yourself. No, it says we've been placed in one. Some miracle has happened where suddenly booze isn't my issue, right? Provided I keep in fit spiritual condition. And the 10th step is one of the ways that we do that. So go live. That's the first thing about the 10th step. Exercise the freedom that God has given you. Try something. How many times have we thought in our lives, boy, I wish I could. Boy, I really want to, I don't know, fill in the blank for yourself, right? No, I better not, right? Or worse yet, we get some curmudgeon in a meeting who goes, better be at a meeting every day for the rest of your life. Make sure it's a 9-hour meeting. Whatever. It's hyperbole. But the point is, we're sort of told, don't venture too far out of AA. Oh my God, how tragic that would be. As if people who drank again because they ventured too far, quote unquote, out of AA. Now, I sort of know what they mean, and I don't, nor would I ever encourage someone to get out of AA. I'm in AA, I love it, right? But AA is here to give me life, right? I was once trapped in a bar, now I can't be trapped in a meeting. That's not freedom. All I did was switch handcuffs. This is freedom. I'm here because I want to be now. Early on, I had to be. And had to be was about getting freedom, right? But now that I'm free, I keep coming back because I want to. It's a joy to be with you, right? I'm supposed to get out there and live, try things, experiment. How many times have we heard, I didn't graduate from college, and then I got sober, and I went back to school, and I got a degree. Anybody in the room have that experience? Yeah, so awesome, right? Or that job, right? That career I wanted. I don't know. Look, there's no life that promises no problems, right? No life that promises no problems. Life promises problems. And the 10th step gives us an opportunity to do that if we're out there living. So the first part, I think, in step 10 is exercise the freedom that the first 9 steps gave us. Go live, man. Go live. God wants wonderful things for you. Don't be afraid. Go find it. Stay close with us, right? But go find it. And as you're pursuing that, your head's going to go nuts. It's okay. We have an answer. We just read it. So in my life, how this works is all those little things that I kind of talked about. Look, I love my wife to death. Many of you know her. She's a wonderful lady. And there's times I can walk in the house and go, it's her, right? The enemy is home. She's not the enemy at all. But that doesn't mean my head can't tell me that. It doesn't mean that the head can't say things to me that aren't true, because the head does say things to me that aren't true, right? So what am I going to do with that? Ignore it? Maybe. Might be one possible solution, but I think if that's a chronic thought, it's rare it's going to go away by itself. Right? So I don't know what your chronic thoughts are, I just know what mine are, right? Sometimes life seems unfair. Maybe some of you have had that experience, right? Damn it, it's just unfair. Why? I don't know, but it just is. I think it's probably because life is happening to me. That's why it's unfair, right? It's not unfair. Right? Gosh, if we'd gotten what we deserved, holy smokes, right? We'd be doing this meeting from a prison cell somewhere, right? So we don't get what we deserve, which is wonderful. So as we live this life, these thoughts come. These thoughts come. Fears, resentments, confusions, whatever they happen to be. Sandy talks about the disturbance. He talks about in step 10 and 11. He talks about this disturbance. Our main job, our main goal in life is to remain undisturbed. Undisturbed. So when we get disturbed, when there's that emotional upheaval, what do? First thing, ask God to remove it. What does that look like? Looks like this. Take notes if you want. Dear God, please remove that. Right? Now, if that was it, if there was a period there, well, that'd be great. But there's more. We also have to disclose it and talk to someone about it, especially if it's chronic, right? And sometimes we hide behind Roman numerals on our chip, and we're like, I don't want to talk to anybody about that. I don't want to share that with somebody. Scotty talked about, right? Conversing with his sponsor and conversing with other guys in the program that he's close with about those things. He's right on that. He's right on that. I got to have somebody that I can honestly talk to and tell these things to, because I got to get them out of me. Can't hide. No more bondage. This is freedom we're searching for. Well, the next thing then, once I talk to someone about it, is I look at the situation. Did I act inappropriately? Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I catch it before it actually comes out in behavior. Well, if I catch it before that, I don't owe anybody an amend, right? Because the third thing is we make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. I haven't harmed anyone. There's no amends to make. Wouldn't it be an awesome life for the people who love us and are around us if we could practice this and catch it while it was still in our mind, before it came out in behavior, before that quick comment or that cutting thing or that grimace, right? Or that selfish act. All people want in life are the same things that we want. And that's just to be loved and respected. That's all people want. And my defects slam up against your desire to be loved and respected, and you get frustrated with my behavior. Why wouldn't you? That's generally speaking why I get upset at your behavior. Right? So you didn't love me or you didn't respect me. Or I believe you didn't love me and respect me. Right? So we make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. If not, we move on. But that fourth thing, resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. I got to tell you, the guys that I sponsor have taught me more about living this program than my sponsor ever has, even though I love my sponsor, and more than this book has, even though I love this book. Because there's so many ideas about how to serve other people that I couldn't come up with. So the conversation is, in general terms, goes like this. Hey, Mike, you got a minute? Yeah, sure. What's going on? Well, I blah, 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 blah. I was feared, selfish, whatever it was. Did you ask God to remove it? No. Okay, I'll hold. Right? Because we're either going to do the deal or we're not. Right? They're calling me because something's wrong, just like I call my sponsor when something's wrong. I'm not a good resource for them as the power to change their life. That's not my job. My job is pointer, right? My job is to point up, not at me. The last thing they need in the throes of their circumstances, whatever those may be, whether they're laden with selfishness, fear, dishonesty, selfishness, whatever it is, the last thing they need is a 25-minute lecture from me about how stupid it is to be selfish. They already know that. That's why they had the courage to pick up the phone. They were sick of it. They don't need that. What do they need? I think they need the 10th step. Why do I think that? Because that's what the 10th step says. Right? Did you ask God to remove it? No. Okay, I'll hold. Some guys do it audibly. Some guys are silent for a little bit. Okay, done. Well, you're talking to me about it. There's 2 of the 4. Right? Did you act out on it? Did you harm someone? Did you hurt someone? Did you say something stupid? Did you just lose it? Sometimes we hear, yeah. Okay, what do you need to do to go make that right now? How do you make that right now? Well, I should probably call and apologize, or I should probably go see that person, or I should probably write a note, or I should probably make the payment, or I should return the Snicker bar, or whatever it is that we did, right? Good, go do it. Call me when you're done. Right? Now what? Now the fourth thing. Resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Man, I got to tell you, the earliest answer I get when I sponsor someone on this is, I don't know what to do with that. Right? I don't know. How do you do that? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm driving in my car. There's no one I can serve. I mean, I'm at work. What am I supposed to do? Serve somebody here? Maybe. Well, think of a couple of things that you can do and then call me back. Occasionally I have them write a list. Right? And it's amazing the things that I hear. It's amazing the things I hear. One guy plays catch with his kids. How about that? Do you know throwing catch with your son is part of Alcoholics Anonymous? I never knew that. He knew that. And I got to tell you, if you have a son and he likes to play catch with you and you're the dad and he wants to play catch with you, I'm going to guess that that's probably at least portionally part of God's will for your life. Just going to guess at that. Not saying it's true. Maybe it's not. But I'll bet you it is. Right? The one guy gives back rubs to his wife because of her pain. Never thought back rubs were in Alcoholics Anonymous either, but they are. Right? There's so many little things. So one guy, he's driving to Rapid City and he calls me and he's like, blah, 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 blah. I just thought of this. It's days old. I didn't do anything, but I shouldn't. I was going to tell you and then I didn't, and now I'm going to. right? Well, he's got 5 hours ahead of him in this jaunt. Like, what's he going to do? Tell you what he did. As he drove, he prayed for his immediate family. He just took time out. And he prayed for his wife and each one of his kids and his mom and his dad. He's got a sister that he's a little estranged from. Not quite, but sort of. She's got some other things going on, and she's kind of hard to deal with a lot. You know? He prayed for her as he drove to Rapid City. I don't know, right? But it seems like pretty simple stuff. But it's life-changing stuff to the person who acts upon it. And it's really good theory for those who don't. Really good theory for those who don't. But my experience is that it changes lives when we do. Right? I have one guy, he's newly married, a couple years. And for those of you who have had the marital experience, those first few years, nothing but bliss, right? Nothing but bliss. Nothing but joy. You know, dinner's always warm on the table when he comes in, you know, clothes clean, all that stuff. Well, he found that he had to reinvent his ideas of marriage because he did this, right? So he was upset because mom always did his clothes. He couldn't wait till he got married, so mom would keep doing the clothes. Unfortunately, he didn't marry mom. He married the wife, right? Went through the whole thing. Oh, I'm supposed to do her clothes. That's right. Because your mom taught you how to do that. Right? Don't worry whether she does your clothes. If she's got dirty clothes and you're doing your clothes, pick up her clothes and put them in with yours. I didn't know washing clothes was an Alcoholics Anonymous. If anything we can do, anything that we can do to act and behave in a manner that is contrary, with God's help, marshaled and powered by his omnipotence, that's how we grow spiritually. That's how we move forward in this thing, right? Not just my will doing it, but coupled with him. Because the motive has to be different than what our motives are in our head. Our motives have to be love. That's really hard to get there, right? Especially when you live in the same house, or you got problems, or there's stuff going on, or your head's just barking at you, right? Or the kids are up all night, or there's some work thing going on, you know? I mean, imagine. Now, we're big vacation people in our house, right? We love the movie Vacation, and we love Christmas Vacation even more, right? All I can tell you is that Cousin Eddie's wife has to be practicing this step, right? You know? Has to be. It's just this constant idea of giving. And you think, well, when is it my turn? It's not. It's not. It's not. Because if I'm living in the moment with God, the question of when is it my turn, it's always my turn. If I'm in the moment with him. It's when I forget that and start looking for when it's my turn that it becomes disturbing to my insides. Right? Does that make sense? It kind of makes sense, I think. So why would we do this? Well, I think we do it because it's the right thing to do, and we want to continue on with our decision in the third step. But we also want these promises that Scotty read. I'm not going to dig into them too deep, but there's some that I think are just amazing to me. Right? Again, we feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We've not even sworn off. We've not even sworn off. Just that sentence alone was very different than some of the things I heard when I first joined Alcoholics Anonymous. You have to commit. Commit to what? Not drinking. Do whatever you can to not drink. Agreed. 100% agreed. But that's the starting line. It's not the finish line. It's not even mid-race. That's the starting line. It says the problem has been removed. It doesn't exist for us. The problem has been removed. Doesn't exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. This is our experience. This is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. It is easy to let up on the program of spiritual action and rest on our laurels. We are headed for trouble if we do. For alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. How can I best serve thee? There it is again. Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. You know, it's funny. We talked about selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear starting in our head before they ever produce themselves in action. What if the starting thought was, how can I best serve thee? Not my will, but thine be done. What would my family be like if that was the essence of my thinking? What would my customer relationships be at work if that was the essence of my thinking? How much would my vendors help me become more productive, perhaps, if that was my number one thought? Think of the racial prejudice that would be cast aside if that was my thought, or the religious bigotry, right? Or the sexism, or some of the things that we struggle with, right? What if our first thought was, God, how can I serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. In all situations, at every moment, stop talking about mountaintops, Mike. Stop talking about these platitudes. I live in the real world. I think that is the real world. And I think selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear is my imagined world. Now, I don't live here all the time. You hang out with me for 10 minutes, you're going to see me break this 1 billion times over. It's just true. It's just true. But that is truly what I aspire to. That is truly what I want. I want to get to a spot where I just love people. And I don't worry about what they think of me. And I don't worry about how I look to them. And I don't worry about what they are concerned with in terms of me. I really want to be that guy. I'm becoming that guy, as poorly as it might seem to most of you. I am trying. I'm trying. And I find out that my success and my failure isn't how I'm graded, sort of. Right? I find that it's just me wanting to, and therefore trying to apply it a little better is where I find the solace, where I find that sense of being undisturbed, where I find that sense of being at peace. Not in the perfect application of it, because I'm never going to get that. But man, God forbid it's not my goal. I mean, how much selfishness is acceptable? How much fear is acceptable? How much dishonesty is acceptable? I want it all. I want every single thing that God is willing to give me, even if I can't see or know what it is. He's still right and I'm still wrong. Right? He still knows better than me. And if I can just apply it a little bit better, just a little bit better every day. If I fall 1 billion times and tomorrow I only fall 950 million times, that's a pretty good improvement for this idiot, right? But I want to keep striving for that. I want to try to get better at it. I like this part here. It says we can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It's the proper use of the will. What line? What? Along this line, what are they talking about? They're talking about having these thoughts go with us constantly. And so as we move into step 11, and I don't want to jump too far, I have little reminders in my life to try to help me remember. Because I don't know about you, but I can want to in the morning when I'm praying and on my knees and asking God for guidance, and then I can get up. After amen, I can get up and forget everything I just prayed. Anybody have that experience? Right? You know? So what are those things? Well, there's some things that matter to me, and they kind of help remind me that I got to do stuff. I got to be involved. One of the things I try to do is I try to look people in the eye. Sounds silly, maybe. But it reminds me that you're a person, not a tool or an object for me. Right? It reminds me that you're a person. Another thing that I'll do sometimes, I'll twist my ring. Right? I pray for my marriage when I twist my ring. Because I want to be a good husband even if she's not around. Right? Just think about it. Just little things, right? I got a deal on my desk at work. right? It's a picture of my concept of God. And when I look at him, I think to myself, how you doing right now? How you doing right now? Right? Little moments to just reconnect. That's all we're at. Just little bit of moment to just reconnect. Right? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Right? Because look, it's tough to figure out God's will for your life, right? And it's not an easy thing. Theologians, saints, scholars, psychiatrists, psychologists, they've been thinking about that and talking about that for millennia, right? Forever. How do you know? I don't know. There's probably a lot of ways you can know. But if I'm to keep my mind focused on how can I best serve thee, thy will, not mine, be done, then at least in my life, I got to have things that remind me. I got a little something in my pocket that I carry. And when I touch it, it reminds me to pray. Right? Some of us carry our sobriety coins. Right? Some of us have little things. I'm talking to a gentleman this morning, right? We have little things that pop up on our phone. Right? Just like a little alarm or whatever on my cell phone pops up. Say a prayer right now. Say a prayer right now. Say a prayer right now. How's it going right now? Right? Now, I don't know how that sounds, but I got to tell you, it's almost embarrassing for me, right? I mean, it's like 27 years sober and you need your phone to remind you to pray. Pretty spiritual, Mike. But the reality is that's the world I live in, right? I can want it to be poetic and some wonderful poem, but the reality is it's hard for me to remember to do this stuff. It's hard for me to remember. And the more I try, the more I can remember. But I wish I could remember all the time, and I can't. I got to have some things that help me. For me, the crux of the 10th step is continuing the growth. And in those moments, sort of being as best I can conscious, without being overly critical of myself. What's going on in my mind? Is lust in there right now? Am I going to just let that grow? Is greed in there? Does that not make a big deal? Who cares? Pride? Well, you know, I used to have lust, but now I'm much better. That didn't help either, right? What's going on in my mind? What's really happening in there? What are the secrets? What are the closed chambers that I won't let any light into? Where's the darkness coming from that I won't let the sun shine on? Get it out. Put it in front of God. Put it in front of another person. Clean it up. Make amends where those things have manifested themselves in a dingy way. And then go serve somebody. Find a new person. Love your husband. Love your wife. Engage your children. Pay your bills. Whatever it is. I don't know. Talk to your sponsor. But there's some action that you can take that can make life a little bit better today. You know, I'll close with this point. And sometimes we gauge ourselves like, when I came in 27 years ago, blah, 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 blah. Well, I better be better than I was 27 years ago, right? A real gauge of how I'm applying 10, 11, and 12 is, am I better than yesterday? Am I better than yesterday? Or am I swimming at a plateau for the last 6 months and not really caring about it because I'm better than I was 26 and a half years ago? I should be better tomorrow than I am today. I may not be, but I should be. Right? I think that's the beautiful part of the 10th step. It allows us the opportunity that no matter what's going on in our mind, to have a way out of that bondage. So I think the 10th step is about living in freedom. Go live. Go live. Man, go live. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and we were talking about our potential. So what's your potential? I don't know. I have this gift and that gift, and maybe that's true. That's wonderful. I think our potential is all that we are as individuals plus God, not just all that we have. Not just all that we are. Some of us are speakers. Some of us are charismatic. Some of us are social people. Some of us are accountants and closed off, and we're introverts. We need people like that. Some of us are cooks, and some of us are artists. Some of us are all kinds of things. But it's not just that gift. Whatever the gift is that you have, it's not just that gift. It's that gift plus a loving God who wants to help us love his people better. That's why we got the gift, so that we can use it to love other people better. And the 10th step cleans away the wreckage so we can stay undisturbed, recognize in the moment that God has fulfilled us with everything that we need for right now, and therefore we have ample to give someone else. God bless you all. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
All right. Ooh. All right, please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.